Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara. So, how was your weekend, Dave?
Yeah, well, I don't even know it's a weekend. Sometimes it just goes one to the other. Yeah, the weekend was pretty good. I had on Saturday. I had a caucus meeting with Kiwanis for our division, and it was pretty good. I was able to brag about the 9,000. Actually, the new number for the donations we got for the school supply drive was north of 9,600, closer to $9,700, and I was able to brag about that. Nobody else in the division came anywhere close to me, close to us. Basically, I was the one that was coordinating it,
Yeah.
and we are officially second overall in all of Ontario.
Well, I'm not happy with that. Second, no. First is only the only acceptable position. What did you do wrong? We've got to break this down. We've got to do this right. First place is all we're interested in, Dave.
Well, the fact is, we're only second is fake news. We actually won, but nobody knows it. I mean, I can't find any proof for it, but
No.
I'm taking the Trump line here. There's no proof, but I won.
Well done, Dave. Anyway, yeah, good job, Dave.
Thanks, Mike. And there's Mike Cushman coming on, and Mike has discovered some more white stuff coming off of a
Yeah, he has. He
Greenland.
has. To the second to the second pipe, MECP has confirmed a white substance, and it comes from the golf course. Yet there seems to be a dam here, right? He's discovered a dam.
Yeah,
and
it's
it
getting
looks like
interesting.
metal cheating.
But the white stuff coming off of the uh, of the golf courses is stuff that they put on the golf courses. Usually, that's what that is. And as when we had Mike on the show that time, and I could look it up real quick, I guess, what it is, what it might be.
Yeah, well, he hasn't confirmed what the substance is yet, but the MECP have confirmed that there is a substance coming.
Yeah, well, I'm glad Mike's after this because it'd be nice. The other one I'm more concerned, I think, toxic looking water is an otherwise. Let's see.
And according to the construction supervisor,
toxic looking water, otherwise a beautiful mini course. I can't get the right article here.
Yeah, well, according to Mike, what he's saying is the dam he found was to stop the Welland River from feeding the stream when the stream runs into the Welland River. That seems weird.
Yeah, it does. People are wondering what that is.
Yeah.
How old does it look, Mike? Does it look like it's been there for a long time, or is it relatively new?
On that picture, the metal things don't exactly look new. Caissons. Then they could just be reused. All right. Okay, so moving over.
It says here it's just soap. It says here it's just soap. Foamer is a concentrated soap. In fact, many supers just use dish soap because it's cheaper and fairly new golf. Yeah, so something to do with soap, but I mean, soap can't be all that good, even if that's it.
Good morning, Karen.
soaps can.
Soap's
Anyway,
not
it's
good. Yeah, soap is not good, but why is it there?
Yeah, it's we found out last time I was here, but I can't find that same article. But
Yeah.
even soap being dumped into, and I'm not saying it is soap, I'm just saying that's one possibility.
Yeah.
But they put something on the greens or something like that, and to, I don't know what it is, imitate, uh, protect their lawn surfaces or something.
Yeah.
Supposed to
Okay.
be benign, but supposed to be.
Supposed to be. Yeah. Okay. So British Columbia had a provincial elections last week, and by Sunday there was no clear winner for those elections. The NDP had 46, were either elected or leading in 46 ridings, when the Conservatives had won or were leading in 45. In each seat is just a seat or two shy of the 47 needed to win a majority government. And there's the question: who's going to win? And they're really a lot of this is based upon the mail-in poll that was late, the later mail-in polls, which may actually make the difference in this election.
Well, first of all, before I like to go on, I'd like to just kind of congratulate Karen Fraser and her senior advisory committee. It looks like we're going to get a designation, a WHO designation, the World Health Organization designation as a healthy, age-friendly city, and that will probably happen on Tuesday night. That's on the agenda. So a little bit of tips of the hat to Karen Fraser. She's now WHO official. World Health. She's connected with the World Health Organization, which means she's a massive conspirator, as we found out during the COVID times. So she's aligned herself with the conspiracies of the World Health Organization, it seems. Jesting aside, that's quite an accomplishment. And thanks, Karen, for your work in that area. Since I'm sort of seniory myself, anything good that the city can do for older folks is good for me. And if I can, I don't know, are old people allowed to hit young people with their canes? I think that ought to be a good idea too. Out of my way, bang. But so anyway, we'll get back to the NDP. Yeah. So you know who's going to hold the balance of power here, don't you?
The Greens.
The Greens. The Greens have 2 seats. The Greens have 2 seats. And if everything remains the same, if David Albee from the NDP can't get any more seats, and the Conservative guy, John Rusted, can't get any more seats, then the Greens will hold the balance of power. And they're more likely to work hand in hand with the NDP because their ideologies are more aligned. But we won't even know till the end of the week, probably, what the true count is, because many of these are within 100. There's a handful of these seats that have been won by 100 or less votes so far, which means you have to automatically, and there's always mistakes in elections. There's always minor mistakes here or there, and when they do recounts, they'll find. I think one person in I can't remember the jurisdiction won by 8 votes. They had a recount and actually won, and they won by 8 votes or something like that. So when it's really tight like this, that means the Greens, it looks like so far, the Greens will hold the balance of power, which means that 2 members can advance the Green agenda through with the NDP. They can push for things that they want, and the NDP, if they want to stay in power, have to oblige them. So that is interesting, that a very tiny, very up until now little powered party will now carry such weight. we'll see if that actually happens when all the recounts come in. But the other thing I like to point out, go ahead.
I was going to say the interesting thing about this election isn't the fact that the NDP, who were on 55, have lost some ground to 46. But it's actually the Conservatives have got higher than they've ever gotten before.
Yeah, this is what I was about to say too. The takeaway here is the Liberals or all other parties are completely obliterated. They don't even factor in. The Liberals ran just a decade or two ago. The Liberals were running the show in BC. They were the majority party. They have been completely obliterated.
Yes.
And is this a sign of what's going to happen in Canada? Right now, it looks like the Liberal Party may be completely obliterated in the upcoming federal election. Is this the trend that's going to happen? Are Liberals going to get marginalized? Are the polarization factors that are happening in our democracies all over the world, where you have the left pushing hard over to the left and the right moving harder to the right and leaving that empty space in between? The polarization of the voter is something that is of some concern to me here. You either go left or you go right. Where are the centrists? That's my question.
Yeah.
Where are the centrists?
And that's where the recount is occurring here, because basically, there's a lot of needing to sort this out, needing to get to the bottom of who's the actual winner, and hence the recounts. But the question here is that how many of those situations whereby one or the other party is leading, is it going to change anything?
Basically, it's a tie between two polar opposites.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing that bothers me the most here. It's a tie between two polar opposites. That which was happening in the United States, where there is this polarity going on, where there is no connection in between. There is no cooperation. They used to say that, every party did what it did, but it did involve itself in the governing of the country. In other words, if the Conservatives and the Liberals and the NDP could agree a certain thing was good for the country, they would stand by it. But what's happening now is it doesn't matter if it's a Liberal thing, then all the Conservatives are against it. If it's a Conservative thing, all the Liberals are against it, or all the NDP are against it. There is no medium ground, and that's my concern here. When the elections happened, then everybody settled down to govern the country, and they did their best to not to oppose the government so much as now they're opposing the government, but in days past is to criticize the government and to bring to the floor things that the government isn't doing well, but behind the scenes, they would work very well with things that they all agreed upon, whatever it was, healthcare or advancing the economy or something like that. There's lots of points that they could agree upon. But modern politics, modern democracies, unfortunately, have decided that I'm right, you're wrong, that's it. And we will not cooperate with you, even though we believe you might have something good there. And that's the problem I see now. Now now we have that exact duality basically going on in BC, where you have hard left, hard right, and the Greens in between are much more going to be aligned with the NDP. But as I say, the great irony here is the tiny, least powerful party in BC is the one that's going to hold the balance of power, or at least it seems.
Yeah, it seems there's at least two seats where guaranteed recounts will occur in one the first set Malahat, where the NDP is leading by 23 votes, and Surrey City Centre, where NDP is leading by 96 votes. And those recounts will occur during the course of the week before we'll know what the final results are. So it's possible the NDP gets their 3 anyway, gets their, if they're 46 right now, they may get the 48.
Yes, we don't know. When the recounts are all done and said, we don't know how this is going to shake out. But if we assume that it's going to be pretty much the same, even if the conservative, even if those numbers, 46 for the NDP and 45 for the conservatives, flip, and the conservatives get 46 and become the government by one seat, how are they going to govern? They're going to need the Green Party.
Yep.
Or they're going to need enough of the NDP party on certain policies. So whoever's going to come up with their policies, they're going to be very, very tepid. It would be the Greens, like I say, were more likely to cooperate with the NDP. So the NDP could govern with 2 Green seats with them. However, they're going to have to make a kind of an arrangement that the NDP made with the Liberals in the federal sense. We'll back you, but this is our laundry list of things we want. This is our shopping list. Basically, we want this, and we want this, and we want this. So if you want us to back you, these are the things we want. So it'd be pretty interesting what's going to happen. But what you need is a stable governing party, somebody that can govern and do the business of the province. And it's going to be damn hard to do if the Conservatives get in, because they won't be able to coax the Greens over to their side, but the NDP will, and we'll see about that. But the big story, of course, is how well the Conservatives have done, come out of nowhere, basically, and become a real player here. And this is an indication of the trends that are happening in Canadian society. Canadian society is pushing more to the right now. It's had a reaction to the left, and is moving towards the right. Hopefully, not too far to the right. Centrist right is fine. The Liberals, of course, they're completely out of it, and I think this is kind of a harbinger of the things that come. Unfortunately, the Liberals used to call themselves the Natural Party of Canada because they're slightly left of center, so they're basically centrist. And they felt that they were most likely to be the conscience of Canada, being slightly left of center and more or less centrist. So they were the natural party for Canada. But that no longer is the case because they're pushing more of their voters away from them. I'm not so sure the Conservatives are gaining so much as the Liberals are pushing their supporters away from them because they haven't governed too well, particularly in the last 4 years.
Oh yeah. And it's also a case of, irrespective of what may well be going on in British Columbia, of the position of the federal Liberals being, impacting the local provincial election.
Yeah, and you can't with the Liberals losing in Verdun, the by-election in Verdun, and losing it in Toronto, and with all the numbers stacked up against them, the poll numbers, you can understand why the Liberal rank and file are getting a bit desperate. And on Wednesday, the caucus is going to have an intervention with their prime minister and say that, it's time for you to go because we don't want to get obliterated, because a great deal of the population doesn't like Trudeau himself. They may have a better, if you look at the polls, they dislike Trudeau a lot, and their Liberals are unfavorable overall, but not as much as Trudeau is.
Yeah.
So the liberals that still exist in Parliament or are existing in Parliament can see that they don't want that factor involved in their election. And you remember when Kathleen Wynne was very unpopular and Kim Crater here was being elected as an MPP here in town. When he had his signs up, he had Kim Crater, but he didn't. The liberal part of the sign was very, very small. You could hardly see it.
Yeah.
And that's because he didn't want to. He wanted people to vote for him as the guy and not for the party. He didn't want to associate himself too much with the party. So the liberal part was very, very small. You'd have to almost be right on top of the sign to see a little liberal thing. The ones previously had liberal all over it. So this is what the problem is, which each individual MP is worried about, is are they going to be painted with the same brush as Trudeau?
Yeah.
Willing to take their chances. Yeah, go ahead.
This is clearly what I think has happened here in British Columbia.
Yeah, you see that shift towards the right, and the government, the feds have got to take notice that they don't want to get obliterated. The liberals were done in pretty badly before 2015, and they had to crawl back, and they did that under Trudeau. But now the thing is reversed. He's losing people rather than gaining people.
Yeah.
And they have to take notice of this trend. And usually BC is a harbinger of things to come. They're a little bit ahead of the rest of Canada. They're probably one of the most forward-looking areas in all of North America. So what's happening in BC is a good lesson to be learned by others. We'll see what happens coming up. So as I've said before many times, that Trudeau's 9/11 will be never 11/11.
No, you didn't.
And,
but you might
got
be right.
to go. He's got to go. But I bet you he will
to save the Liberal Party. Yes, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
but he won't.
But then
he won't.
Yeah, you could be right there. His ego's too big. He's got too many people around him saying how wonderful he is, and it's hard to. It's hard to. And I heard Kathleen Wynne and others on Decibel. Decibel is something you can get with a little bit of a podcast thing that you can get if you have Globe and Mail subscription, which I do. And in one of the Decibels, they talked about what politicians go through when their time has ended, and the popularity against them is evident to everyone but them. And they always think, well, tomorrow will be different or next month will be different. And right now the Liberals are saying that their leader and their party will get much, much more popular next year because they expect in 2025 the economy to improve a fair amount in 2025.
Yeah.
That's a big gamble, by the time anyone feels the economy getting better, anyone can look at any chart that says, oh, our economy is much better than it was 2 years ago. But when you go to the grocery store and you have to pay nearly $8 for a brick of butter, you think to yourself, whoa, man, I remember, or a dozen eggs or anything else.
Yeah.
Everybody can see that if you want to buy healthy groceries today, stuff that's good for you, it's going to hurt you.
Yeah. Yep. And so, we're all feeling that,
Yeah, everyone.
Doesn't matter, everybody is. And even if you think about it, the cheap and nasty loaf of bread is now doubled in price.
Yeah, we find also that one of the hallmarks of the Liberal government is the carbon tax. to save the planet with the carbon tax, but it's extremely unpopular. Even the NDP are pulling out of that carbon tax.
Yeah.
They have their own idea what they were going to do if they come into power. And the whole thing just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We're gonna punish you at the pumps, and we're gonna punish you when you pay your natural gas bill for your furnace. But later on, we're going to give it back to you. And this is supposed to incentivize you to change your habits and to get electric furnace instead of a gas one. Well, who's going to be able to afford to do that? And then they're going to, and then they say, well, we're going to hurt you at the pump right now to incentivize you to get electric or a better car. Well, people can't just turn around and buy another car. They can't. They can't do that. They can't buy an electric car or a hybrid car just like that. So the incentive program is more like a cattle prod. So that doesn't work. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to the average Canadian person. So to get rid of that albatross of paying more for your gas bill at the pump or paying more for the gas bill for heating or that, that's another thing I think the Liberal governments have failed to explain properly. If they explained it better or were able to convince Canadians it was a good thing, but they haven't been able to do that. They haven't been able to come up with the proof they need. So it'd be interesting. I think what's happening in BC now, where that centrist Liberal Party is completely obliterated, I think this is a lesson that the Liberals need to learn in Ottawa, but they may not be able to do it because JT will not step aside. We'll see.
Yeah.
He may have to have a walk in the snow like his father did, or he might have to listen to this show where I predicted he's going to step down at 11:11, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But get him on, invite him on.
I think
let's have a big discussion with him.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a big discussion with him about him stepping down for the sake of the Liberal Party.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get many answers though. If you ever heard him on, I've heard him a few interviews that he's given, and you really don't get much. It sounds good. I mean, he's very good at sounding good, but when you actually put, and just like Kamala Harris was in the beginning of her campaign, she sounded good. She sounded real good, but there was no substance to what she said, and that's pretty much what the Liberal Party, or in particular Trudeau, he does not give off much substance. He just says everything's going to be rosy.
And Mike says something that I've long believed in: the Prime Minister. We should get a vote for the Prime Minister, and vote for your local candidates separately.
That would get us into the kind of Republican type of idea that they have in the United States.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So there's so you're saying, you've said this many, many times, haven't you, Dave? Burning natural gas is cleaner than burning coal. Have you said that many times?
I have indeed. Yes.
Yeah. Well, according to a new NDP bill, by Charles Angus, who was MP for Timmins James Bay, NDP MP for Timmins James Bay, this new bill C372, known as the Fossil Fuel Advertising Act, to be tabled Monday as a private member's bill, would basically mean that making such an argument is called promotion of fossil fuels.
Yes, and we remember last week we did a story about the Niagara transit system is going to adapt the ethics of the rules, regulations for advertisement as the TTC has done.
Yeah,
and the TTC has taken down advertisements that the fossil fuel companies have put up. natural gas or whatever. And they claimed that it was misinformation, that the gas companies and the fossil fuel companies were putting up false advertisement and misleading and misinformation about fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are bad for the planet, so they'll have to take them down. And I didn't really like that because I felt that it's a little bit different from they're treating it like tobacco or alcohol. Tobacco is an addictive substance, right? Alcohol is an addictive substance. Both have really bad health effects. So you could say that you could take them down. But the fact that the oil industry in Canada is essential to our economy. I think 11% of our GDP comes from the gas and oil that we produce. Not only that, it has thousands and thousands of jobs. You'd be better off saying you can't advertise for casinos in the TTC or the Niagara Transit System because casinos proliferate bad gambling habits.
This is an interesting one here because when you're talking about, you were talking there about advertising of cigarette smoking should be banned, or banning of advertising of cigarette smoking. And I believe, and that one's clear because it is not just the user that is at that has a problem. It is secondary smokers that actually can develop cancers as well.
But it's also, let me just interject, it's much more of a problem for our healthcare system.
It is.
Alcohol and tobacco.
I'll also say that if I choose to have a drink of alcohol, it's only me that's affected. If I'm drinking this and it's alcohol, you're not impacted by it. Yeah, I know there's the healthcare argument.
Natural gas, on the other hand, makes your house warm during the wintertime.
Well, yeah.
And that makes it a healthy environment in a sense because it's warm. It is much cheaper than electric. So
if I don't have natural gas to burn in my house, what am I going to do? Start figuring out a coal-fired or a wood-fired burning point?
So the bill here, and the NDP really ought to get their act together on this one, but this is a private member's bill.
Yeah.
And the bill says that it is very draconian. It is almost to the point where if you say, "Oh, I got my new furnace in, it's natural gas," you can go to jail because you're because the law could be interpreted as you're benefiting the oil and gas industry just by saying anything positive about it. Natural gas, for instance, generates energy at a far fewer emissions or pollutants than diesel, coal, bunker fuel, or any of the dirtier fuels. This is why the government taxes natural gas at a lower benchmark than higher emissions. But if you were to say that, according to this bill, if you were to say, well, natural gas is better than the others, or advise somebody to do that, you could go to jail or be fined, because what you're doing is benefiting the natural gas. It says, nevertheless, according to C-372, this is the bill, anyone making such an argument should face a jail sentence term of up to 2 years or a fine exceeding $500,000. It is utterly ridiculous. It is completely ridiculous. But we find that this, and you would think, well, this is one nutcase. But we found that last week that advertisements, fossil fuel advertisements being banned in the TTC, and they're thinking of banning it here in the NTC. What does that mean? So if you've seen advertisements for natural gas for your furnace, or choose natural gas. Almost everybody around that I know has natural gas. I in particular have electric, but the government has made no no real change. I mean, whole neighborhoods could be done by geothermal heat, but they don't go that way. They go natural gas because it's the easiest, it's the most efficient, and it's the least polluting of the other
the thing
fossil
about
fuels.
whole neighborhoods and geothermal is, what do you do about older neighborhoods? It's all right if you were creating a new neighborhood, but it's not so easy to do that for older neighborhoods.
Well, my point was, when I was part of the political action committee for my union, when we were arguing against closing the coal plant, when they did, we knew it was going to close down in 2015, but they wanted to do it as early as 2007. They ended up doing it in 2011. Our argument was that would spike the prices of hydro up too high for everyone before you had other things to take its place. They did it anyway. They did it in 2011, and power prices did spike very high. And the thing that replaced the coal plants was basically natural gas plants. So so that was the one that picked up the peak power. So it was much less polluting. It was much less polluting. But our argument was, you could do that 4 years later because you haven't got them built yet, and you're going to put a burden on the Ontario consumer. And our power became the second most expensive in all of North America. So, or between the United States and Canada, anyway. And so that was the consequence of that. So you have to look at two things here. But in this particular case, the draconian means by which they are talking about, and this lends a lot of cannon fodder for conservatives in their campaigns against the left-leaning parties. They can point this out and say, look at this. They are going to make it illegal for you to even speak about natural gas or gasoline in a positive way. Can you imagine somebody passing by you, a police officer, and you telling somebody that, this is the best thing, that my furnace, it's got natural gas, it keeps my house nice and warm. You could be arrested for that. So that is the possibilities with this particular bill, and the idea that it's already occurring, that you can't advertise for natural gas in the TTC or the NTC because they view it as alcohol, as something like alcohol or tobacco.
Well, okay. Here's the question, though, is one of the saving graces about this right now is that we've talked about this as if it's a bill that's got some chance of success. But let's remember, it has got zero chance of success because it's a private member's bill by NDP MP Charlie Angus.
Yes, but it's showing the harshness of how people are thinking. Is this, if I was the NDP leader, I wouldn't allow this to come on the floor, because that's going to scare a lot of people away from voting NDP. Is this what the rest of the NDP are thinking?
Yeah, I would think so as well. It would actually have it would certainly have an impact upon what people think about what the NDP is.
Yeah, they're going to come right into your house. They're going to come and say, you cannot say this. This is you don't even have that with tobacco. If somebody says, oh, I really like this kind of tobacco, nobody's going to throw you in jail. But in this particular case, if you start going around and start saying things about natural gas and how good for it is, the economy and all that other stuff, I don't know. And Karen asks, is there anyone in the Liberal Party to step up? Unfortunately, no one's going to do that right now. It's going to be just like Biden. Everybody's going to stay behind the scenes, and when Biden finally left, then they were able to throw Kamala up. But if in the Liberal Party to step up as a leader, that's going to be difficult. And the longer it waits, the longer it is. In fact, the argument is out there right now among the party faithful is if it's too late to have a party convention to pick a new leader. We're going to have to stick it out with our old one, because it will be worse for us to have a convention now to pick a new leader at this date, which goes right back to Trudeau in the first place. If he was a wise enough leader, he would have stepped down when they had chances to pick a leader.
Yeah.
That would help balance the polls a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else to be said on either of those two items?
No, I'm done.
No? Okay. So a local migrant worker, seasonal worker, says if he goes home, he will die. He's looking for a liver and a liver transplant, but surely, what does that mean? What does that mean? If he goes home, surely, if he's on the list, he'll be on the list, even if he comes back next year.
This is an ethical quandary, is it not?
Yes.
We have a temporary worker here. He needs a liver. He can't go home because when the health officials here phoned back to Jamaica and said, "Look, we got one of your guys here, and his liver is failing. We want to send him back so he can get a liver transplant." And Jamaican says, "No, I keep him because we don't have anything to give him." And he's more likely to get a liver transplant up here than he is down in Jamaica.
Yeah.
For a couple of different reasons. One's a bigger population for one thing, and then also a better healthcare system all in all. But that means he's going to get a liver that would go to a Canadian resident, a Canadian citizen. Livers are very, very rare things to get a brand new liver, kidneys or livers or something like that. Though that's rare to get one. So if he gets one, somebody else doesn't get one.
Yeah.
And somebody else would be a Canadian citizen.
And that is part and parcel of the challenge we face here. Is if he goes home, he hasn't got a chance of getting one. But if he stays here, the accusation is he steals someone from a Canadian citizen.
No, he's not a Canadian citizen, but the mitigating factor here is the fact that
no, I've said the allegation would be he would steal one from a Canadian resident.
Yeah. So now the mitigating factor is he's worked in the Canadian agro business and contributed to the economy of the country. So does he have any rights based on that he's being a citizen, or not a citizen, but a worker that's come up here and contributed to our economy? Do we owe him that? Now, definitely, ethically, our humanity, we do owe him the best possible what we can do. But do we owe him a liver that a Canadian would get? And are we sure that what Jamaica says is real? They have a limited amount of livers that they can give out too. So if they could say, "Oh, well, we don't have any, you got to do it," are they really telling us the truth, or just trying to save the amount of livers they can get for their own people? And if one of the Jamaicans can get a liver up here, that's one less they have to worry about down in Jamaica.
Yeah, do they see him? How does a Jamaican see him? Do they see him as Canadian?
Who?
This particular worker. Yeah.
No, because he goes back and forth all the time.
Oh, I know. But that doesn't stop them seeing him as Canadian, per se.
They don't see him as Canadian. No, they see him as a migrant worker.
Yeah, anyway.
And because in this particular guy, from what he says, he doesn't he likes it back in Jamaica. He likes being with his family, and that's the place he wants to be. He works 9 months a year up here, though, and unfortunately, he's got a liver problem and needs a brand new liver. So what do we do? What is the ethical quandary here? Now they got a GoFund going, initiation,
Yeah.
GoFundMe kind of thing going for him, because he's going to need, after the planting season, after the agricultural season's over, where's he going to live? Right now, he lives on the farm, basically in places where the farm workers live, but that's not going to be available to him after the season's over. Where's he going to live? First of all, they have to find him a place to live, and then they're going to have to find him a liver, and all of these things are a huge amount of expenses. Now, how many more of these? Now, we could probably take care of this fella with a GoFundMe and other things like that. But in the end, how many more of these will be coming? And will a migrant worker that knows he's got a bad kidney come up here, enroll just to get into Canada so he can get a new kidney?
Well,
you see what I mean?
I think there's
is this opening a door for migrant workers with ailments to come up here? I mean, how are they screened? Are they screened?
I get where you're coming. I get where you're coming from, and I think there's a major difference between a migrant worker that's been working here 15 years, let's say, and a migrant worker that's brand new that's develops a disease. I think when a migrant worker has been working here for 15 years, there's an element that we could say that we do owe him something.
Yeah, but do we know him the liver of that was saved the life of another Canadian?
Yeah.
And when another migrant worker, say this is his first time in Canada, this fella here, and he gets sick, what is our moral obligations towards him? We can't send him back home. He's going to die. If it was his very first time in Canada, what are we going to say? Well, too bad, buddy. You got to go home and die. Are we going to do that?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, and as I said, part of that is actually wrapped up in that question about if you were talking about a migrant worker who done 1, maybe 2 seasons here in Canada versus one that's done 20 or 30 seasons, it might well be easy to make a decision.
No, it's not. You mean if this was his first time in Canada and he was working here, first time in Canada, and he's going to die if he goes back home, are we going to say to him, well, too bad, just because like if you had been working here 15 years, okay, we have obligations towards you, but now you only worked here 1 year, so you got to go home and die. But if you had been working here 15 years, you don't necessarily have to go home and die. We see the quandary.
Yeah. It's a quandary all the way around. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the question: there is a question really about how much do we owe to somebody who, who spends time working here?
Well, I don't know. For one thing, from this point on, they're going to have to screen them very, very well. They're going to have to do their medical very, very stringently, because we don't want this to happen again. Now, this guy's 33 years old, and his name is Staffel Morris, and he works on the orchards in Niagara on the Lake. And he has swelling in the feet, autoimmune hepatitis, et cetera, and I don't know. He has a very solid family, it says here, but what's going to happen to him, I don't know. Now, he's got a very solid family back home in Jamaica, and he would be well taken care of down there if they can get him a liver, but they can't. And I don't know. And I'm just trying to find the GoFundMe that if anyone hears this thinking.
So let's turn this around. So what happens is a brand new migrant worker comes here and works, and he's 3 months in, and he steps off, and there's a rogue car speeding down the road that he's on that barrels off the road, and he's involved. He's seriously injured in an accident. We take him to the hospital. We fix him up, don't we?
Well, it's an entirely different case.
Is it?
Sure, it is. He got here. There were responsible parties in those who are driving. There's a law that protects those people. There's insurance. Insurance companies come into play. All that. Not in this particular case. I'm just trying to find the GoFundMe in case anyone wants to send him money. There is a GoFundMe or something like that, and I was just going to try to mention it for anybody that might want to see guys.
Yeah, there is a GoFundMe.
They got about $1,500 so far, or something like that. But basically, he's going to need a place to stay until a liver is available, if he's entitled to a liver, and then he's going to have a time to recuperate, and he's going to need a place to do that after he gets out of the hospital. It's going to be he needs constant checkups. He's been in and out of hospitals, livers, so on and so forth. I can't find where they have the.
Hang on, I think I might. Yeah, I got it. I'm going to drop it in the. I'm going to drop it in the comments for you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here it is. Online fundraising campaign, setting a goal of $50,000 to help Morris will at least have a place to live and food to eat while waiting for the life-saving liver transplant. The campaign has raised $1,160 from 19 donors as of Saturday afternoon. The organization has also been calling landlords looking for a suitable apartment that can accommodate Morris's needs. This is all very tough because he's going to be more and more debilitated. He's going to need nursing. It's going to be an expensive process for the Canadian health, for our province, and it's also going to take a liver away from. If they do give him a liver, it's going to take a liver away from somebody else who needs a liver.
Yeah,
if they can get a match.
I put a link to the GoFundMe in on the page. All right.
Okay, that's his best choice, I guess. So that I brought that up as a ethical dilemma. In my opinion, we should do what we can for the man as best we can. But as I said before, if I needed a liver and he needs a liver, I'd say, hey, wait a minute, I was here first. I'm a Canadian.
Oh, I know. So I know. Yeah.
I know it's a life and death thing.
Yeah. Okay. You put up this article about silver spoon oligarchs.
Yes, this is a very good article. Extremely good.
It's an old one, of course. 4 years old.
Well, I brought it up because it's reared its ugly head again in the election in the United States and probably here as well. Now this is called the silver spoon oligarchs. Now these are not exactly like and it starts off, well, we know people like the self-made men like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, or Elon Musk are billionaires in their lifetimes. But lurking behind the dynamic first-generation stories, however, are persistent examples of even greater multi-generational dynastic wealth. This article is about how money is moving up and up and up. The bottom 65 million families own only twice the amount of wealth that 50 families have in the United States. So 50 families have half of the wealth that the bottom 65 million families have, which means that they have an extraordinary amount of wealth, and those wealths are turned into power. And these oligarchs basically are using that wealth and the political power that it brings to make sure that they get wealthy and stay wealthier all the time. And they are collecting not only wealth, but power. This is a constant theme nowadays that the all the tax breaks that are given to the wealthy starts the wealth moving up and up and up into fewer and fewer hands. Those fewer and fewer hands have excessive amounts of wealth, which they use to control politics. And one of the first things they do is control politics so their wealth can continue to increase and their power base can continue to increase. This is a dynamic threat to democracy because behind the scenes in every politician, particularly in the United States, well, here too, is those people who are very powerful, very savvy, and what they do is they entrench their oligarchy more and more every generation. So they pay less and less of taxes. They accumulate more and more money, and more of that money goes into their hands, and they use that to influence politics to make sure that it continues to happen. Our democracy, we talk about the ideologies of our democracy failing us. But basically, what is really failing our democracy is the amount of wealth and how it is being accumulated in fewer and fewer hands. And those are multi-generational. Like we always talk about the Elon Musks and the self-made men like that who make a lot of money really quick, the Bill Gates and so on.
Yeah. Well, for example, in 1983, Sam Walton and his children had about 2.2 billion, 2.1 billion
to maintain the power base.
And they've grown that to 247 billion over the years.
Yeah. Now it gives you examples now.
Yeah. Mars has grown 3,000% over the last 40 years.
Yeah, you won't find that anywhere else. Here it says, actually, in healthy, equitable, democratic societies, great fortunes dissipate over a few generations. As initial wealth holders have children and grandchildren, pay their fair taxes, and make charitable gifts. But our country's wealth is accumulating in fewer hands, including among people who may be up to 7 generations removed from the original source of the family's wealth. So typically you say, okay, you got a guy like Elon Musk and he makes a fortune, and when he dies, it's that fortune is dissipated over his to his grandchildren or his children and grandchildren and so on. And so that large amount is now dissipated, but that doesn't happen anymore. So Elon Musk or anyone else who has a lot of power uses that power to make sure that every one of their descendants accumulates more and more wealth, that wealth is not broken up, and that power source stays in place. And now you have generations from the oligarchs, each one of them very powerful and very wealthy because of the way the tax system's set up. So that wealth does not dissipate. It stays in fewer and fewer hands. That means it is a very extraordinary challenge to democracy because you have one vote and the oligarchs own the politicians, basically. You want to get elected? I got money for you. I got a super PAC for you. You do what I say, you get the super PAC. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
And this is what they normally do. At a certain stage, some of these wealth holders or their descendants shift resources to consolidate their wealth, fend off competition, and create monopolies. As this report will show, they focus less on creating new wealth and more on preserving existing systems that extract ongoing rents from consumers and the real economy. The America's dynastic families, both old and new, are deploying a range of wealth-preserving tax preservation strategies to further concentrate their wealth and power. Power that is deployed to influence democratic institutions, depress civic imaginations, and rig the rules to further entrench inequality. The tax avoidance means less support for the infrastructure we all rely on to preserve our health, safety, and quality of life. So there you have it. That is what's happening today. And that is the real challenge to our democracy. If you have 65 million, if you have 65 million, and not only that, that tiny percentage of the 10%, we always talk about the 10% and then the 1%. And it's a tiny percentage of that 1% that actually are accumulating them at extremely fast rates. Like, I mean, thousands of percents. Like, nobody gets thousands of percents of income increase in their lifetimes. These people do.
Yeah. All right. And the thing is, this is actually something that is not just of concern in the US. It's something that really is replicated in many other parts of the world as well.
Well, here's actually a kind of a sum up. It says, as wealth has become concentrated in fewer hands, dynastically wealthy families have gained massive and unaccountable financial, political, and philanthropic power. Of course, they hand out, throws the people a bone every once in a while. Here, I'll build a stadium, or I'll build a hospital or something like that. This is the kind of thing they do to maintain good relations with people, at the same time taking more and more of their money. They are stockpiling ever more billions in bank accounts, trusts, private foundations, and donor-advised funds, while giving relatively little back to society that has enabled their fortunes. And
I want to know,
the assets and income of low and middle income households have continued to stagnate. Not good.
What I want to know is where these people, if they're industrialists, where are they investing in industry?
No, it's not just that. They whatever got them the wealth in the first place, whether you're DuPont or whether you're Microsoft or whoever you are, it is then the massive amounts of investments you make everywhere else. You see what I mean? You could invest in banks, you can invest in everything, and you can shelter that by what most of the rich people do is don't have an income. So they have assets, and they cannot be taxed on those assets until they realize them, cash them in. So the assets are kind of frozen. But what you can do is borrow all kinds of money based on your assets. So I own a steel mill, right? And instead of getting a salary for that steel mill or whatever else can be taxed on, I have the assets for that steel mill, but I don't realize them in capital gains. I just leave it that way, and it can't be taxed unless I sell off part of it and realize that capital gain. So what I'll do is I'll have money coming in to me, and what I'll do is I'll borrow money for whatever I need and pay it off with dividends from what I get from the steel mill or whatever else. I don't know exactly how they do it, but they do it like that. They never realize their capital gains. That's why they only pay a fraction of money. That's why Buffett, one of the continually richest men in the world, paid less taxes than his assistant did. His secretary, basically.
Yeah. All right, we're going to have to leave it. We're going to have to leave it at that point anyway. Can't afford to go over too long. I'm in court 2 days this week, at least 2 days.
What's that?
I'm in court in LTB at least 2 days this week.
Well, I hope somebody's there to pay your bill.
Well, I hope somebody is there to pay my bill as well.
All right, everyone. Without further ado, I've been